Well, Rob, what was it doing this morning?
It was snowing.
And what was it doing this afternoon?
It was raining.
And what was the temperature?
It was in the 50s.
When it was snowing?
That was weird.
That was real weird. It's time for an all-temperature cheer closet. You like what I did there?
I do. Did you tell them what the temperature was 2 days ago?
70.
70.
70.
What the beep? I'm beeping myself now. You like that?
I do like that. The sound engineer appreciates you. It's time for me to put my strapless maxi dresses in the back of the closet and bring some transitional clothing to the front. So we're going to set in a sleeve. Rob, you want to help me set in a sleeve?
Okay.
Are you sure? You don't want to stay?
No.
Come on. First of all, I want y'all to know something about setting in a sleeve in the round. It ain't that deep. As long as you mark all your notches and your ease points and you take several passes at the sleeve arm side. Maybe that's pronounced arm cis. You know, I'm never really sure because I taught myself to sew on the internet. I didn't have anybody saying these terms to me. So if anybody ever comes at you for how you pronounce a sewing term, tell them that you have the superpower of sewing and you don't necessarily have to pronounce everything correctly. Okay? I might be in a little bit of a mood today because winter is coming and I'm not into it. Isn't this pattern so cute, by the way? Isn't it so cute? On Instagram, I put this pattern up with some amazing fabric from Selvage and Bolts, and I was like, should I make this? Should I make this detective sidekick outfit? And everybody thought I meant, should I make this for Rob? I paired this here pattern with some amazing outdoor fabric from the Madame Joanns. I mean, it's got parrots and palm leaves and really what else could you ask for? I got pretty far on this jacket. I cut out the sleeves. I did the whole main jacket. I never got to setting in the sleeves. This is a 2-part sleeve, which means the sleeve itself comes in 2 parts. You've got your upper sleeve, which is your front sleeve, and you've got your lower sleeve. Here they've called it the undersleeve, which is your undersleeve. If you match those seams up, it all equals one big sleeve. Most of your commercial pattern companies today want to keep it simple for y'all, and they keep it in one piece for your big sleeve, so it'll look just like this. A lot of indie companies do that as well. You will see there are many markings on this sleeve. You've got 2 notches at the back and 1 notch at the front. Almost every pattern that's out there today should have 2 notches at the back of your sleeve and 1 notch at the front of your sleeve. That's so you can easily tell, okay, 2 notches means it's the back sleeve, 1 notch means it's the front. You've also got 3 markings for ease. You've got your top point, which is your shoulder point, sits right there on your shoulder point, and you've got 2 other dots on either side of your shoulder point. That's where we're going to ease the sleeve in. Now, this is the method of setting in a sleeve that I like to use. I switched over to this method a few years back when I got tired of wasting thread on 2 rows of gathering stitches. Let me show you what I mean. Usually, from your ease point to your ease point, you have to sew 2 lines of basting stitches, gathering stitches on either side of the actual stitching line that you then pull together to sort of scrunch up the sleeve head. I actually like to have my machine do that work for me. Save the thread on this and let the feed dogs do the work. Say you have 2 pieces of fabric that match up perfectly, right? You bring them over to the machine, you place them under your presser foot, you sew along. At the end, one portion is a little off, sort of like this. The feed dogs are moving some of the fabric quicker than the rest of the fabric. But this works to our advantage in setting in a sleeve, okay? Here's a sleeve all done up. I've marked my notches. You've got 2 little clips here for the back notches, and you've got 1 little clip here for the front. If I were to put this on, oh yeah, you can see how that's gonna sit on my shoulder and how there's extra fabric up here. We need to ease that into the arm side of the jacket, also known as the armhole. You need extra fabric here to ease into this hole at the top so that your shoulder has movement, so that you can move free like a bird, free like a macaw or a parrot with your outdoor fabric. We've got our sleeve here, and I'm going to look for the back notches on the sleeve, which means the notch that has 2 clips. I mark my notches by clipping right into that little triangle, so those are my back notches. I'm going to place it so that the back is lying down on my board here, so I remember that's the back. And then I'm going to take my jacket, lay it with the front side facing up, and right now the sleeve is facing the proper way to be inserted into the jacket. Now, we sew right sides together when we're inserting this sleeve. So basically, you're gonna take your bodice, in my case a jacket, it could be a shirt, it could be a dress, long as it's got an armhole in the sleeve, you're good to go with this method. And we're going to pull the sleeve into the armcis, right? Let's do that again. So you've got your jacket with your fabric right side facing out, your sleeve with your fabric right side facing out, the back of the sleeve is down on the board, and just flip that jacket onto the sleeve. And the first thing we're going to do is match up our side seam. And I like to pin right through the stitching line. That way I can flip my work over and I can see that that pin is right on the stitching line of the sleeve, which means our seam is going to match up perfectly. Now I'm just going to keep going on around that arm side and match up my notches. That little clip there is my front notch. Same thing on my bodice. Match those notches up and throw a pin in right at that notch. Move around to the back notches. Find the back notches on the bodice and the back notches on the sleeve. Match them up and throw a pin in it. We've now got the underarm portion of the sleeve pinned to the underarm portion of our bodice. So we're just going to keep on pinning around that curve so you can see from notch to underarm seam to notch. That's all pinned up. We're going to start getting into the gathering, or rather into the easing of the sleeve, when we get to the shoulder point and those 2 other ease points I mentioned. So, little dot right there is my first ease point on this jacket. I've marked it on the bodice, and right there is my other ease point. I've marked it on the sleeve. We're going to match those up, take your pin, and just like pinning on that stitching line that we did on the underarm seam, you're going to stick your pin so the point goes right through that ease mark. That is what you want it to look like. On both sides, you've got your pin heading right through that ease point. And now we're just going to continue on and match up our shoulder point, which is the large dot, which is right here, okay? You're basically just playing connect the dots. Don't be afraid of setting the sleeve in the round. It's just a game of connect the dots, that's all it is. Now, you see how the material is kind of pulling away from the bodice? Here, but here it is not. Here is where we're gonna ease it, and that's really not that hard. Don't worry about your pins too much on the easing section. You want to throw a couple in. What you really want to pay attention to as you're stitching is that those points, those ease points that you pinned, stay together, and the rest of this fabric is going to get eased in. You can, if you like, at these points, throw a double pin in so that when you're sewing, you remember, oh, this is a real important point. This point needs to stay where it is. I'm going to throw a double pin in at the sleeve head shoulder point as well, and another one in at that third ease point. The notches, I'm not going to throw pins, double pins there because I've clipped it, so I'm going to be able to eyeball where those notches are when I'm sewing. Let's take her over to the machine and get to inserting some sleeves before it starts, I don't know, monsooning or before there's a heat wave. It actually feels quite hot in here right now. It feels like we're back to summer because as soon as I start setting in a sleeve, summer returns. Sweet, let's go. The first section of the sleeve we're going to sew is the underarm section, and that is the section from the back notches, which are my 2 back triangles that I've clipped, to the underarm seam, to the front notch, which is that one little notch that I've clipped. And I'm going to sew this together at a 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. I'm going to find my back notches, place that under my presser foot, and I've got my needle adjusted over so that the edge of my presser foot to the tip of my needle is actually 3/8 of an inch away. And that's going to make it easier for me to stitch this sleeve seam in. I'm going to be able to use the edge of my presser foot as my guide. Back stitch at the beginning, and so removing my pins as I go, you know why. And being sure my layers stay together as I'm sewing. And now you see we've gotten to that front notch. I'm going to stop at that front notch and backstitch and cut my threads. So the underarm seam is now sewn. This is the section of the sleeve seam that does not need easing. Now we can begin the task of easing in the sleeve to the bodice. I have removed the bed from this machine, and so now I'm just using the arm. And I've got the sleeve fabric on the bottom. The bodice fabric is on the top. And I'm going to insert the sleeve hole, the arm side, into the arm of the machine. And now I can start stitching right where I stopped at the underarm seam, right at that notch. Because we've got the portion of the fabric that is larger on the bottom of the machine and the portion of the fabric, the bodice, that is smaller on top, the feed dogs are going to feed this larger piece of fabric quicker, and it's going to ease it into the smaller piece of fabric. Let's make sure those edges are matched up, and we're going to sew at 3/8 of an inch seam allowance. And you can reach under your work to adjust the sleeve underneath the bodice, making sure those raw edges keep matching up. So just keep reaching under, making sure all those edges match up. There's a double pin, so I want to be sure that fabric lies flat. You're just making sure the fabric lies flat the whole time. Nice and together. I've reached that other notch. Gonna backstitch. And let's see how we did. Okay, check our work. Well, yeah, there's a couple of points like right here and right here where the fabric did pucker. So you know what it's time for. Oh, that's right. I'm a pro. Remove a few stitches wherever we find a pucker and go back to the machine and ease them back in. It ain't no big thing. That's what a seam ripper is for. A seam ripper is a time machine, okay? You have the power of a time machine in your hands. And isn't it amazing that we can course correct? You know what? This is the reason that I stopped cooking, because if you cook something for dinner and it doesn't turn out right, if you don't eat it, you don't eat. I like to eat. With sewing, however, if you get a few puckers in your sleeve head, you can take your little time machine out, correct it, and adjust it, and boom, you're wearing a jacket to your evening meal when you're heading out for takeout because you let this one cook, and that's never a good idea. So we'll just throw a couple of pins in wherever it was we needed those adjustments. Back to the machine we go. I've got my machine bed back on for this round of stitching because we're going to stitch with the sleeve head facing up. This is the bodice front of the jacket. The sleeve is inside there, and here's the arm side, and we're going to stitch all the way around now at 5/8 of an inch seam allowance, which is the actual seam allowance of this pattern. And we're going to start again at the notches. On this pass, I've got the bodice fabric on the bottom of the machine against the feed dogs, and the sleeve fabric facing towards us, towards the needle. And I can go off the marking here on the plate, the 5/8 marking, or I could move my needle over so that I can use the edge of my presser foot as the marking. And I'm just going to take my handy ruler out here and check that. That is 5/8 of an inch. So now I can use the edge of my presser foot right up along the 3/8 of an inch stitching line that I had from our first pass. And that makes it way easier than trying to match this curve up to a marking on your throat plate. So let's drop our needle, back stitch at the beginning and end. And now we're going to carefully sew all the way around this arm side. Adjust your fabric as you go. A sleeve does not want to be rushed. Just continuing to make sure that all those layers lie nice and flat. We are once again at our notch point, and we've got a couple little areas in here that didn't get gathered in properly. We're going to tackle those now. So here's our first area. You can see I've ripped out some of these stitches here. I'm just going to play with this fabric, just coax it to where I want it until I can feel with my fingers that this area where I'm about to stitch is lying nice and flat. And I'm going to slowly sew. You can sort of push the fabric of the sleeve away. And that's dealt with that pucker. Coming to another pucker here, I'm going to remove those pins. Make sure my raw edges are matching up, and I'm going to coax that fabric away because the sleeve head fabric again is bigger than the bodice fabric. And just keep stitching until I get back to a point where I have no puckers. Here's another. This one's lying pretty flat. And we've reached the end. Make sure once again your fabric's lying flat. You can just feel with your fingers. Don't sew forward while you're feeling with your fingers, okay, folks? Back stitch. That's it. Let's check if we have any puckers. I like to look on the inside of the sleeve head because that's where the puckers will happen, on the sleeve portion, because that's the larger amount of fabric that has to be eased into the smaller hole of the bodice. Everybody likes a small hole when sewing. That turned out pretty nice. Let's turn it right sides out and check our work. There you go. Look at how that matched up there, huh? Look at that. All the way around. No puckers. Oh, I'm sorry. Can we take a moment to admire the underarm seam here? The underarm seam of the bodice to the sleeve. Just beautiful, if I do say so myself. This is amazing.
That's very nice.
I'd like you to take note of the underarm seam. Can you even tell that it's there? That's
very good work.
That's right. Those four corners are just, that's like the junction.
Do like a serious super close-up.
Thank you.
Do you like the sound effects?
That was really good.
Thanks.
Thank you. You want to try it on and show the people what it looks like? You want to just try it on? You want to just, you don't want to help with the sewing, you don't want to help with the modeling?
No.
There we go. That is a sleeve inserted. I hope you tried this method because listen, if you decide that this is not the way you want to go, oh, what do you got? Oh, what do you got? You got your time machine. You just rip out them stitches and you do it the way that you like to do it. But try a new thing. There's always new things to learn in sewing. And if you've never sewn a sleeve in before, try it. You'll like it. I'm gonna go ahead and set this other sleeve in because it's almost time for dinner. And well, really that doesn't matter at all because again, I'm not cooking. So that's it. That's what it looked like. That's what it do. Sleeved up and ready for my collar insertion. And also ready for dinner. Luckily, I have a Rob.
Howdy.
What you cooking?
Pork chops.
Pork chops. And me without my dining stool.
Mm-hmm.
Oh well.
Oh well.
Hey, I'm done sewing for the day. Both sleeves are inserted. I really think that people would just love to see this on another body, just to see what it looks like. Just to see some things. Just to see, just give me your arm there. Your arm goes up, come on, into the hole. That's what she said. Okay, there we go, yeah. And then you got one back here. Might be a little tight on him. This is just to prove to everybody on Instagram that although there is a Rob-ish person on this cover, this pattern is not sized for him. And you're released.
Am I?
You are.
Are you sure?
I'm so sure. I love you. Okay, you can just take that off now. Oh, peace out, everybody. Emphasis on
Getting this thing off.
Oh no.
That's what she said.
It looks pretty rough. Peace, y'all. See you next week. Happy sewing.